Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday. It's 4:30 p.m. outside Chicago Central Time. This means it's time for the ViaMonstra office hours. This is where you can ask questions on pretty much anything, MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, learn a little bit about happened the last week or so in our little industry. And today we also are I'm very pleased to announce we have a special guest with us. And with that being said, let's get the show on the road, shall we? All right, there we are back. Hi again, Andrew, and a special welcome to Dean Ellerby, who is joining us for the first time as panelist. I have certainly have helped before getting comments and feedback from the various sessions we had, but welcome, Dean.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, who are you? What are you up to?
Oh, wow. So I'm a cloud security architect at an MSSP based in Zurich, actually in Switzerland, called Open Systems. We do managed detection and response services. That's my main day-to-day, which is kind of security related. My background though is Intune, ConfigMgr, MDT. I mean, my
All
actual background.
Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. My actual background is probably back in 2007 with watching ViaMonstra blogs and you essentially. I don't want to go too deep so early, but following you essentially and trying to figure out how MDT works. I remember sitting at work for hours and hours one day, waiting for a machine to finish building so it would fail, because I knew it would fail because it always did, but it always rebooted before I got the error, and I was waiting for it to fail. And so I could get the error message so I could actually Google it and ask you what it meant. And then I saw something in one of your blogs that you could just tell it not to reboot and also get the actual logs to trawl through. I was so new at this back then. I mean, you've obviously got many years ahead of me, but it's cool.
All right, awesome. And I know you've been very active in the community as well, or community. Johan learned to speak English. We talked about this, but yeah. So where are your main platforms? Where do you post your solutions and findings and whatnot?
I guess I started on YouTube with a colleague of mine, Andy Jones. We started the Get Modern channel, mainly just because Intune.training was awesome, and we used to follow it. We used to enjoy their content so much, and we were like, we can do that, So we did it, and we spent a lot of time understanding it, and we think we did pretty well. We did a conversational piece at first, and then timelines didn't quite meet up, so I started doing my own content, and Andy started doing his. And then that kind of just kept going, and I kept creating my own content. I remember the first video I did, which was only 15 minutes long, my own video, and it took me 10 hours to create that video. 10. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I put so much effort into making it perfect and learning all the different tools, and I used DaVinci Resolve and stuff to edit the video. And I was using a thing that you can edit 4K movies in to create a 15-minute YouTube video of me. Ridiculous, but that's where I started.
I'm pretty sure every YouTuber had that particular experience. The first recordings, they are downright painful, and the editing of that recording even more painful. You do like 42 different retakes, and then somehow the audio get messed up, so you have to start over, and pulling hair, as you can see I have done. But I did get the announcement that you have a brand new YouTube channel. So see, I can shout this one out.
Yes, that happened today.
There
it is. Today. So we had that cloud management community channel for 2 years, almost 2 years to the day, 23rd of February, we put that first video out there. And it was awesome. We've done really well. We're still growing. We will continue to grow. I'm still putting content on that other channel, but that's going to be content focused on the community. The whole point of the channel was around the community. This channel that I've created is more selfish. It's more about me, my brand, my own training that I'm putting forward. And that will help me not clutter up the community channel that we've got with my own stuff. And if I want to promote my Udemy courses or my Pluralsight courses that are coming out every few weeks, I want to be able to do that without stepping on the toes of the other guys and girls in the cloud management community team, because they're awesome. They spend a lot of time creating content themselves for this channel. So I've stepped aside to do that, but I will definitely be part of the team moving forward as well, creating on that channel.
Awesome. Well, congrats on the new channel, and I noticed the focus seemed to be Intune, and at least so far. So that's music to my ears.
It is indeed. I've actually cheated by creating a load of content over Christmas ready for this release, because it takes such a long time to edit. With my schedule, I can't guarantee I can do it. So I've got a load of content already in the bank that I'm slowly trickling through.
Brilliant. Looking forward to it. All right there. Andrew, how has your week been?
Oh, busy. We had a lot of, thankfully, a lot of news, a lot of little bits of information that have trickled in over the last week. Another round of our Q1 courses this week. Busy week, which is good, right?
So you're saying I should go ahead and share your screen for a little bit?
Yeah, I think I can share some bits of info from around the community.
Let's see if I can work this one out. I've been practicing.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So, like I said, few things today. Simon over at Cloudway had a blog post a couple of days ago on the 5 approaches for local admin access on an Azure AD joined PC. I thought this was a really useful post. This is a question that we get pretty frequently in our courses. How do we manage that type of access? So there's a couple of good options here, talking about just the standard native Azure AD roles, using local user group membership, policies in Intune, the Cloud Lapse solution, and a few others as well. So if that's something that you are looking to just understand your options or do a little bit better in your environment, definitely recommend checking out this post. Gabe Frost posted a nice reminder. This is something that we have talked about a couple of times on the office hours here. Update compliance is fully retiring on March 31st. And if you want to continue receiving those reports that you have today, you have to have your devices enrolled to Windows Update for Business reports by February 14th, which is just a couple of short weeks away.
Yeah, that's not many days at all. That's...
Not at all. Fortunately, as long as your devices are either Azure AD joined or hybrid Azure AD joined, I would say that this transition was pretty straightforward. It's a much easier to implement solution than update compliance in my experience. Not that update compliance was particularly difficult, but there were a few steps you had to take to really get it working. So still, that is only 13 days away. So if you have not switched over yet, I recommend doing that as soon as possible.
I actually know a fun fact about Mr. Gabe. These days, obviously, he's a group product manager at Microsoft. He does a lot of work around Intune and Windows Update for Business, is trying to help out as much as possible, talking to customers and whatnot. But in the early days, he helped develop Branch Cache.
Really?
Some 2 decades ago, or whatever it was. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, just stumbled across it. We were at MMS, we were talking, he came by and starting to say, I was there when we wrote this component for HTTP sys. It was so cool. It was peer-to-peer. It was Branch Cache. Like, Yeah, we heard of it.
I imagine you have. It's so cool to hear those stories though, and hear somebody so excited about something that they get to create. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's such a small world. It's like, what are the
Mhm.
odds? Anyhow, yes, back to you.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing that. Came across Mike Terrill, one of our friends over at Big Bank, posted a short and sweet post on useful Windows 365 Intune filters. So these are pretty cool. This came along with one of the new features that came out in Intune 2301, which I believe you were going to talk to us about, Johan. And this basically is, I'll let you talk about it. But these are useful filters, again, especially for Windows 365 PCs. Another nice, useful thread that I came across, quite a lengthy thread, and an accompanying video from Fernando over at Microsoft. Basically, if you're working with Microsoft Graph, Graph Explorer, and Graph PowerShell, which is a little bit more broad than Intune and ConfigMgr and MDT. However, these days, I think most of us in some capacity are interacting with Graph. So really useful thread here. Talks about how you can test. We've spoken several times, Johan, here on the office hours and in our courses about getting your own M365 tenant for testing, playing around, labbing on your own time. Or even if you want to test out something for work, this is a great thing. And then from there, several tips and tricks on that will help get you started on how to interact with Graph, how to use Graph Explorer to find out which endpoints and which actions you want to perform against those endpoints. Again, just really useful stuff, and as I said, quite a nice lengthy thread here.
All right, good stuff.
Last but not least, a quick PowerShell module from Jannik Reinhard on how to get the assignments of a device via PowerShell. Looks like you posted this up on the PowerShell gallery, and this is just going to take a device in Intune and send back, as you can see here from the screenshot, all of the applications, configuration profiles, group memberships, that sort of thing that are assigned to this device. So very useful, nice little script. So thank you for that.
Didn't he become an MVP like today?
I think that's right. Here's his announcement about it. So congratulations. That is amazing news.
Good stuff. That's quite the achievement, and congratulations from us all. Good stuff.
Absolutely. So that's what I had for this week. A couple of things going on, like I said.
Yeah. I have only two things that I wanted to share at the moment. Of course, as mentioned, 2301 is now rolled out till for all regions. When we spoke, or when we were here last week, it was only out in the APAC region. But in addition to some shiny features, especially around filters, to very easily differentiate between different type of join devices, Microsoft also added in a little sneak preview of a new troubleshooting experience that you can enable. It's kind of hard to see in this screenshot, but basically around here you click this and you get to see the new experience. And haven't had a chance to play around with it much yet, but at least it's available. It showed up nicely in my tenant, so something to do for the weekend, I guess. And then the final thing that I had is that the tallest Finnish person that I know, Panu, was selected as a speaker for MS. So I'm looking forward to meeting him in May as well. So forgot to ask, you're going?
Yes. Yeah, I was fully intending to go anyway, but I also won a ticket at the Intune training quiz. I actually won a ticket there, so I will definitely be going.
That is awesome. I think I owe you a beer or 3. We can figure that out in the Firelight Grill and bar. Good stuff.
Indeed.
There's a lot of things we figure out at that bar.
Oh yeah, solving the world's problem one at a
That's
time.
right. That's right.
That's all I had for now. See if there are any questions coming in.
Yeah, we've had a couple coming in. Matt's asking over on YouTube, Johan, can you please tell us about your most recent post about configuration items, configuration baselines?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a question that came in probably at some point late December, asking for, can you please explain how to use a baseline to update, in this case, an XML file. So started that blog post, and then Christmas and New Year's caught up with me, and I never had a chance to finish it until pretty much now. So up on the blog, if I can type at least somewhat correctly, I added this one here. Baselines in ConfigMgr, for those who are new to them, they are pretty much like reactive remediation scripts in Intune, but they do offer ways to that you can have a discovery script to detect the condition that you want to work with or that you want to have in a specific way, and it doesn't fulfill that. You can have another script, a remediation script, to actually fix that. So in this case, this was a Cisco any local collect policy where this value here needed to change. So, long story short, there is a script somewhere here that obviously I did not mean to start a pause. I was trying to do a zoom it rectangle, Control 2 instead of Control 3. Anyhow, I'm looking for a specific value, and I'm looking for a specific file, this one here. And then I'm basically just checking that value, reading in that XML file, and hey, is this value the way it's supposed to be? Yes or no? If it is true, perfect, return true, all is good, otherwise return false. If the return is false, the remediation script will kick in, and that script obviously goes ahead and sets the value in the file. So loads the file and sets the value. And something that took me a few more hours than I care to admit was that when I was doing this the first time, I figured out fairly easy how to save the XML file, because I had done that in the past. But what really threw me off was that it changed the spacing in the file. So I will show you what I mean. I have this file here. So as you can see, the original file, and I'm just showing all the spaces in Notepad++, there were tabs here. So in this area here. And after I modified, it was replaced with spaces. And I've learned the hard way that Cisco AnyConnect client is particularly picky on how the file is formatted and also which type of encoding the file is in. So that's why I had to add in the script some extra logic. What did my... too many windows open, I think. Here. That's why I had to add in this one here. Not at writing time, but at loading time. That took me a while to figure out also. But then to set it to the right encoding and then save the file. So anyhow, that's what this one does. A regular baseline in ConfigMgr. Have it right here. That was a sequence. Baselines. This was the one I used for the FIPS mode. This one has the single configuration item. And if we look at the properties on this one, this is where we will find those scripts that I talked about. Just copy and paste it in here. And then we're looking for that the value is true. And we're also telling it to actually run the remediation script if it detects that it's not compliant. I may or may not have forgot this checkbox the first time I tried. And I couldn't figure out why on earth does it fix it. I have the script. It's right there. On my deployment, I configured it to actually do the work, because when you configure the baseline, I should probably mention this also here. When you deploy it, there is a magic checkbox here as well, but you need both of them. Otherwise, it's not gonna do the work. So, long story short, that was that blog post. Yeah.
I love the way you opted to explain very briefly what a configuration baseline was by making it similar to an Intune proactive remediation. It's an odd situation because that's the newer thing, and baselines have been around for many, many years. So, yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's also the cool thing. We were in a course on Monday, me and Andrew, and it came up a question, okay, where can we find a lot of good proactive remediation script? And Andrew shared a collection. There are actually a few good collections out there for Intune, but pretty much every baseline for ConfigMgr you stumble across, and they have been there for a long time. If they cannot be used as is, you often just need to do a tiny change to them for them to work good in Intune as well. So if you have a rich repository of stuff that you would normally do, by all means, they are very likely to work in Intune as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good tip.
There's a follow-up comment to see Gary Block has joined us today. Thanks for joining us, Gary.
Hey, nice.
I think you might agree with this, Johan. Creating and modifying XML and PowerShell causes more gray hair than my kids do.
Yeah. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. That and the ConfigMgr admin service scripting against that one.
Yes.
That's a lot of gray hair.
Would you all believe it? Johan's 28 years old. It's just the PowerShell and admin service.
They are right.
He's got blogs that are 28 years old. I've seen them, so that's not true.
I'm turning bloody 50 this year. Getting old.
My goodness.
Yeah. All right. What else?
Ari's asking a question on YouTube. While triggering the device diagnostics from the Intune portal, can the Intune agent send logs from a custom location? For example, Windows log software for PSADT apps, and is it configurable? I don't believe either of you two gentlemen, please step in if I'm wrong or have something to add here. I don't believe you could configure the diagnostics collection itself, but if something like PSADT is configurable, or an MSI log or something along those lines, if you have some custom log, I believe under, let me see if I can pull this up on an Intune device, under program data, there is a
share the screen.
Yes, I just want to make sure I had it on this device first. So, okay. Yep, if you want to go ahead and share my screen, Johan.
Will do, sir. Coming up.
Under Program Data, Microsoft Intune Management Extension /logs, here I believe you could upload your custom logs, and this particular directory will come through in Collect Diagnostics. And I'll share the Collect Diagnostics link as well. And this kind of shows exactly what's coming through when you click that link, or what's being bundled up and sent to the portal.
Yeah. Dean, is that something you have had a chance to try at some point?
Collect Diagnostics, yes, but custom stuff, no. That's exactly right. Use the third-party tool to push the logs into the right place for them to be collected.
All right, beautiful.
I'm just going to copy that link off real quick.
Yep.
Highlight.
So that was a question from Tim regarding hybrid join topic. We run into issues from time to time. Yes. When a PC does not think it's hybrid joined anymore, but the Azure portal still think it's a hybrid joined device. What's the best way to determine the hybrid status without running the command from the PC? Anything on that, gentlemen?
Anything that comes to mind is directly on the PC.
Well, if it's not hybrid joined, it's not going to be doing much with regards to Intune comms, is it? So it would likely be inactive or not seen recently if it wasn't hybrid joined, I assume. I'm not saying that's the answer. That's probably just a thing that happens as an aside, but you could always look for devices that are stale, inactive, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more like if you're not able to reach it from Intune at all, you also have a problem to doing something clever like collecting the logs or running a script on the device, etc. So might have to. So if that's the case, you would have to find another way to get that info. Obviously, stuff like that can be done remotely as long as you have network access to the device. The challenge with many Intune devices is that they are remote. They are on internet. They are behind a firewall. They are not easily accessible when the management kind of link goes down. A bit of a catch-22 there.
Mm-hmm.
But if the device doesn't think it, sorry, I love this kind of thing. If it doesn't think it's hybrid joined anymore, then it's kind of become unjoined at some point, and that's not a thing that is simple to do. I would look. I would try and. That's not a common thing that you should have to try and do, right? That's why none of us have a clue how you do that. So you would look at the event log to see why it became unjoined or why it now thinks it's not joined, and then figure out if there's a group policy or something that's making it lose its join in some way. Because, as I say, it's not a common thing that I've come across.
Yeah, that's a good point. It can be an legacy active policy that kicks in or have kicked in. Yeah. All right. What else is out there?
All right. Question coming in from YouTube from Willie. Currently have a few Windows 10 images in MDT that have version 21H2. Is there an easy way to update my images to 22H2 that does not involve recapturing all of the images again?
No. What we found over the years is that the minute you try to do any type of version update, either an in-place upgrade or an enablement package to raise a version, sysprepping that image again after it's been upgraded usually gives you an unhappy image in the long run. So that would be simply the better approach would be to re-import a clean and pristine 22H2 image, replace what you have in your normal build and capture sequence, or make a copy of it and replace the apply of a step in that one, and simply let it run through. So you get an image that has not been built, updated, and sysprepped one more time. So
it does look like Gary was following up a little bit in the chat as well. It sounds like if you don't have a way around that for some reason, you could use DISM to inject the enablement package while offline or once in the full OS, apply the update. But as you said, it sounds like...
I have not tried to do offline injection of enablement packages, but I had run into problems with switching version in Windows and recapturing it one more time. So I wouldn't recommend it, even though worth testing, of course.
It does raise a good question, though, as to why, if you have so many images, that's a question you need to ask. Why do you have so many images? Is there a way you can consolidate or look to use a vanilla image and then use MDT or ConfigMgr on top of those to transform that image into something useful without having that base image, which is the single source of problems?
I mean, there's a valid point. The trend in the industry in general is to move towards having just a single thin image and then layer on top whatever customizations you have at deployment time. Well, not all organizations can do that, but that's something that we see happen just the last few years. Organizations that were like, die hard, I'm going to have a thick image. 5 years ago, they realized, well, due to modern hardware and better network and better everything, I can actually deploy a machine fairly quickly with a thin image and then put the apps afterwards. Exceptions will always be there. There are schools, etc. They need to deploy a classroom or a lab in a short time window, and they have so many large applications. Their only option is to have a thick image. But if you can have a thin, that is definitely a recommended path, and that will allow you to reduce the number of images you have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
You mentioned, sorry, Andrew, you mentioned Graph API at some point. You mentioned during your intro. Have you seen? You may have covered this because it's fantastic. But the Graph X-ray tool. Have you seen that?
Have seen it. I actually don't know that have we covered it. Maybe you mentioned it once, Johan.
We have not showed it off in office hours, but yeah, it's a pretty good tool if you're trying to figure out what actually happens behind the scenes. So see if I can find a link to that one.
So it's I was introduced to it from a colleague on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, but it's been around for a while. And my issue with Graph is that I found it difficult to figure out exactly which query I should be using for various, get or post actions or whatever. So that's where X-Ray is awesome, because you just use the console and then, okay, next time I'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have that link up here. Let me see.
Funny enough, too, I believe Merill is one of the original contributors or creators of X-Ray.
Yes, I think so.
All right, let's see if I can share that screen then.
So it's sort of an analog to like when you were using the Active Directory Admin Center, right? And you could see the PowerShell commands come by at the bottom. That would help you learn how you could automate the very things you were doing.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great point, Dean.
Yeah, so this was the link, and yeah, there are some explanation videos as well. So yeah, it's cool stuff. I love what community is coming together, or how they build these amazing solutions, like putting in hundreds and hundreds of hours and then just use it.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Perfect.
All right, Matt's got a question coming in from YouTube. In Intune, when I deploy Notepad++ for testing, it shows in the company portal but keeps installing with and keeps having a failure with the error 0x87D300C9.
Kind of hard to it's not an error code I recognize. Usually it's due to invalid command line parameters, etc. Because Notepad++ is such a simple application per se. It's no dependencies. It's just a single file.
Google says it's a timeout of some sort.
Yeah, that doesn't sound likely either.
The description of the code. Description of the code in the Intune portal is that the unmonitored process is in progress. However, it may time out, and it comes up as a failed.
So rather something with the agent rather than the actual installer itself, then.
Well, I found a post that does have that error message, but the top solution is exactly what you said, Johan. Just validate the first thing to look at is validate that your command line switches are correct.
All right.
Oh, but yeah, and then a little bit further down, it looks more like PowerShell may stick forever. You can share my screen if you want, Johan.
Yes, sir.
I may have even found the same blog post as you, Dean.
You have indeed.
All right. So there's where it looks like the timeout could happen. The PowerShell script just gets stuck forever if a message box is being displayed. So maybe if you were deploying with a PowerShell script and didn't have the quiet switch or something like that, may cause this.
I think the answer is, and both of you have touched upon it, and it gives it in that post just a few messages paragraphs above. Try it manually first and see what it does. That's always the case. That's always the answer with installing apps. It's never trust the documentation. Just try it first, see what actually happens, and then automate that. Because putting the automation in and then trying to understand what happened from the logs, it's just a waste of time. And I say that having spent months wasting my time.
You know how many times I've gone and downloaded the content for some application and was just quickly going through the motions, and it turns out, wait a minute, this source content is, 3 megs, not 300 megs. Whoops. Thought that uploaded a little too quickly.
Yep.
But it sounds like I'm in good company at least.
Yeah. I had another question coming in just before we started today as well. I figured I should mention it. There was a gentleman asking for Windows 11 support for Microsoft, for MDT, and why Microsoft doesn't have like an official support or an update for it. I don't have an answer for that, but I can tell you that even though Windows 11 is not supported nor tested with MDT by the development team or the product group, which happened to be the ConfigMgr product group, it works very well. We have done a lot of deployment of Windows 11 and both 21H2 and 22H2 using MDT. And even with the newer ADK, if you don't mind fiddling around a little bit in the MDT configuration and the deployment share, and when you set it up, and it works very, very well. But I wished Microsoft had shown a little bit more love to that platform, because it's been such a good friend for almost a decade and a half now, almost 2 decades even. So yeah, I just want to touch on that one.
Good deal. Thank you. Let's see. Got a question from MIGL on YouTube. In MDT Lite, I'm deciding on how to lay out the out-of-box driver folder. Can I get away with using family driver packs if we have way too many models from the same vendor, or use individual zips?
Well, I'm a firm believer that pretty much anything then using a per model approach is not the way I would do it, put it that way. Even though you technically can throw every driver that you have in a giant pile and hope Windows figure it out, real world experience shows that that's often not the case. Especially if you have to deal with multiple vendors, if you're in the same vendor and the models are not too far from each other, like age-wise, at least you have a fighting chance to start to combine packages. But I still, to this day, I prefer very much and recommend to use a model-based approach, because it allows you to get that control very granularly. And when you update the packet for a model, you know that you have to only retest that model. If you have a shared packet for like 7, 8, 9 models and you change one driver in that folder, in that packet, congratulations, you have to retest all 9. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. What not many people know, though, is that common community tools like driver automation tool from Maurice and Nikolai, that actually works with MDT as well. So it will create that nice folder structure model by model in MDT Workbench. So you simply fire up the tool, select the models that you want, and you take a long coffee break. And when you come back, those are imported and ready to go in a nice structure. So highly, highly recommended. Should probably blog about that or something.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right.
You'd like to add there, Dean? I know you've been doing deployment quite a bit over the years.
I have. Yeah. Sorry, I was doing something else. Yes, I did pick up though. Matt asked a question last week that you haven't touched on yet. Maybe you're avoiding it. Sorry, didn't brief you on this about Autopilot logs. How you can I can't remember the exact question because it was a week ago when I was in Texas. But yes, there was something around that. Do you recall?
Since you brought it up, floor is yours.
Sorry. Oh, I have no idea. This is your show, Johan.
Ah, good lord.
Maybe we table it. Any other questions?
I'm just going to slink off into the background here.
So I guess the question was, how do you troubleshoot Autopilot? And I guess apart from hang on, you can't grab the diagnostics. Maybe I should have thought of a good answer before I brought the question up.
Oh, that's perfectly okay. But I mean, you're right in a way, because these days there is an option to allow the enrollment process to at least try to grab some log files for you. That hasn't been around for too long time, but there are a good chunk of troubleshooting resources available for it. But even things like opening up the event log on the device itself, like do a shift F10 during the enrollment process, find the event viewer, sometimes give you some good information to see why it couldn't enroll or what happened. There are also two diagnostic scripts that you can download, PowerShell Gallery, one to check all the network configurations, quite useful, and one to get some diagnostics itself from the enrollment and for the Autopilot process. Niehaus put that one together a few years back, so it's also up there on the gallery. I wonder if I have that link collection somewhere. We did put together for one of our courses, we did like a troubleshooting link collection. If only that was a way.
Your suggestion of using Event Viewer on the local machine, that reminds me of a post I saw recently. It might have been Mr. Shannon Fritz, or maybe he was the person who brought it up originally, around invoking remote help on an Autopilot client. So you can actually get in and do that when the Autopilot client is remote, because that's how it's meant to work. So that might also help. I can't find the link to it yet, but I did see it today. So there's been some updates to it.
Let's hope. Yeah, I've seen in the past people using Quick Assist and then having to modify those methods when the Quick Assist application changed at some point last year.
That was exactly it.
Yeah. Let's see what we have in those. Looking around for those particular links. I had them somewhere. It was only like 2 weeks, maybe. Can't be that hard. Found them. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna do that one and that one. So this one here is the main troubleshooting link up on Microsoft. That's a traditional one. And then we still have the old school ones from Mr. Autopilot himself, Michael Niehaus, when he was still on the team. Even though these are older, they are a few years old, these additional posts, there is a lot of content in these that are still valuable on how you can do some advanced tracing for these. And there is a lower level, the first one here, that is without an analyzer. The other one is with event tracing for Windows and all that good stuff. And then after the fact, Niehaus has also posted a few resources here to those and some other references. I know that Rudy Ohms has a few good blog posts on the Autopilot troubleshooting part. Oliver has a few as well, Mr. Kieselbach. And there are some other things we have showcased here lately that can be useful in figuring things out. And I can apparently not spell the Autopilot. This is great. This is not my day. Third time is the charm. Here we go. What can possibly go wrong in the live demo? Anyhow, a lot of resources available here as well. And these are really updated. And in fact, since we have Mr. Niehaus mentioned here, of course, not to miss out tomorrow morning's very, very shiny session where we spend a good hour and a half, 2 hours on diving into exactly what happens behind the scenes during setup. So both Windows 10 and Windows 11 covering the changes in between, but we'll basically open up a command prompt and a PowerShell window and some log files, and then we'll stay there for the rest of the hour and a half. There's a lot of fun things you can do with deployment.
That's awesome. A real deep dive.
Yeah. All right. What else?
All right. Ari's asking on YouTube, what is the proper way for organizations to move away from the private store to Microsoft Store new apps? The plan is to deliver the store apps via company portal. So I haven't done any migration of the apps from the legacy store for business to the new store yet. But in terms of assigning an app with the new store, it's pretty straightforward. Pop into the Intune Admin Center and go to add a new Microsoft Store app, search for the app you want, and assign it to the Azure AD group. That's one method of doing it. There have been a couple of posts that we've showcased over the last several weeks as well that help you do that in an automated fashion with PowerShell and Graph. But yeah, it looks like Johan's putting it out there.
Yeah. So I'm assuming I haven't done any migration either, but my thought process here is to simply deploy the new ones and remove the assignments, or maybe uninstall the old ones even. Not sure how that will actually work.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you stumbled across, Dean, in your testing?
No, but it's going to be a topic for a video that I do this week. Based on that question, that is a really good point. How do you migrate? Because everyone's going to have to do it. So I think that's going to be quite a popular question. I will definitely look at that and make a video, hopefully before you write a blog post, actually. I'll try and get that in there before you.
Well, I can be convinced not to. If you're going to make a video, I don't have to. So this is brilliant. I just got out of some work. So for those of you that missed that introduction earlier, Mr. Dean here, of course, very timely today announced a new YouTube channel. So I'm assuming this is where we can expect this video.
Definitely, yeah. And I've just spotted that 105 subscribers in 12 hours. I am blown away by that. Actually, I didn't even check how many subs we had. So that is ridiculous for a channel that was created today. So wow, thank you.
That's a good day's work. Yes.
Yeah.
Say congratulations.
Well, hopefully, us showcasing this will lead you to a few more before the day is over.
Indeed. Although my day is over in 40 minutes, so we haven't got long.
Well, it's only 5 here, so.
Right. Got it.
All right. A lot of good discussion going on in the chat around the imaging question that Willie had, as well as some of the drivers. But Ari had another question. In the sake of time, we've got 9 minutes left, so I want to make sure we hit all the questions at least. any good blog on how to give permissions for Intune admins to access graph stuff. We don't want Intune admins to be global admins. Dean, I think you might have something on that question.
Yeah, I'd love to share my screen, but I just tried to give permissions on a Mac for it to share my screen, and it insisted I close Edge. And given that I'm using Edge to be here, I couldn't quite do that. So if you could share the link that I gave you.
Yep. If you want to share my screen, Johan.
Yes, sir. That I will do right away, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Practical 365, awesome resource. Tony Redmond, obviously, awesome resource for everything, really, but specifically this. He covers the least permissions concept. Obviously, that's an important thing. That's why the question's been asked. And then gives 4 options for finding the least permissions you need. So the first one there is guess and over permission. That's obvious, just guess. You guessed global admin, that will definitely work, but that's not the point. And then the next few give an idea. And this is my favorite one that you've just highlighted right there, the Graph Explorer to highlight permissions. That will show you exactly what you need for a specific command. Query, sorry, not command. And then there are various others. And then once you've got that information, how you can package that up and make sure you get the right permissions for everyone. Definitely a good resource there. So if you could share that in the chat, that would be awesome.
Yep, absolutely. I'll make sure we post it with our links.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Graph's a hot topic today.
Yes, sure is.
All right, so let's see here. Matt was asking about our opinion on Intune Remote Help. Does it work to use it? So I've only really played around with it a little bit in the lab. Haven't deployed it out in production at this point. I don't know if either of you have yet.
No, same here. You, Dean?
It's controversial. I quite like it. I appreciate it's very expensive, but I've got a very small customer, which makes it affordable for the work I do for them, because it's too expensive per user and admin to deploy. So that's typically where it doesn't really matter how good it is because it's too expensive. But to answer the question, it's pretty good. It seamlessly works for single sign-on. All of the interactions I've had responding to support calls have been simply just open remote help. It's fine. You deploy it via Intune and it's already there for them. Just open remote help and I'll jump in, give me the code. So I've enjoyed it, but I do appreciate it's simply not going to be something that is adopted broadly right now until we look at the possible premium add-ons that people have been talking about being maybe the thing that's coming next, this bundle of premium thing that Microsoft do often. So
yeah, I saw a thread on that going on today as well in some other context, but people are basically waiting for that announcement coming up. And during the technical takeoff last year in October, they hinted at, all right, around March, this time, end of Q1-ish, that there will be some announcement on the new pricing for that additional licensing model that you mentioned there. Education organizations, they've been lucky in a way because Microsoft decided at some point to include it for academic or educational organizations. I'm assuming because nobody else bought it, but that's just my own guess on the topic. For our lab, it was brilliant because it saved us well over $2,000 a year compared to the equivalent TeamViewer license. Because
yeah, indeed, there's a point at which it becomes it's not possible, not even worth thinking about. But until that point, it's actually might be affordable.
Yeah. So crossing fingers, hoping it will be a reasonable pricing, hoping that Microsoft learned a little bit from the feedback they surely got last year. So we'll see.
Yep. All right. Ari is asking, what is the correct suggested way to reset a physical machine before it can be autopiloted again and again? This will be test devices on a workbench. Would it be wise to delete the Azure AD object IDs and AD computer objects all the time, or no? Any thoughts?
I mean, these days the Autopilot reset actually does what it's supposed to do. But I was working with a school in Australia, a university, and they had a lot of lab machines that they will re-image like over and over again, and they were using the white glove scenario for that. And what we found after resetting a bunch of devices many times was we got a much more reliable process if we simply told the deployment sequence to, when it starts, check it if it exists in Intune Autopilot. If it does, delete it, and then do a normal bare metal deployment. And in the end, just before the reboot, also nuke it away from Azure AD, because you cannot really do that right away. There is like a sync, a few minutes that needs to happen. So, but during those minutes, we decided to apply the OS image, and that always takes a few minutes anyway. So then we remove that one. And then we have a script and a specialized pass of just before the out-of-box experience that actually go in and re-register that device again. So that's what we had to do these like constant redeployment all the time. Those have probably been re-imaged like 50 times each now, many of those devices. But if you're not doing it that extreme, I'll say a reset will get you a long way as well. Just like more edge case scenario, I think.
I think it's not uncommon that you should have to reinstall a machine a few times, I think. And so the fact that you've just had to go into that depth, and you're an expert in this field now, but can you imagine how difficult it is for a newbie coming into this, going, really, I have to do all of these things to get this working? It is mind blowing. So yeah, resources like this are awesome, just to make people feel more comfortable in the fact that that's how they have to think in order to get around these slight edge cases.
Yeah.
All right.
My only concern with the reset in general, in addition for the mass running it many times, is the time it takes. I'm hoping for Microsoft to figure out a way to make it quicker. So we'll see.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Matt asked a question if next week we could talk about reporting in SCCM using a link from Microsoft. Matt, I don't see the link coming through. So if you could try to post that again, we can hopefully make a note to mention that next week. But with 1 minute left, I thought I would. We've got one last question that looks like a fun one coming in from YouTube. Johan, this one's for you. How many screens do you use to manage your lab?
Well, in front of me, I only have 2 screens. I have a 4K monitor to the left, I have the camera in the middle, and I have a 21-some-inch monitor I use for demos. I have that one configured for full HD to always guarantee the same resolution when I'm sharing stuff. I don't have to resize the window or anything, but that's my setup. I have an HP laptop that I'm taking some notes on at some time in front of me. And in my little data center in the basement, I have a KVM switch and a monitor flipping between the different lab devices. That's it. Simple, works.
Beauty of virtualization, too.
Heck yeah. I mean, I obviously use remote tools a lot. I like the remote desktop manager from good luck. The name escaped me. Devolution?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Great remote tool. Allow me to have so many environments available at will instantly. A lot of PowerShell to manage it all. But I think we are up on the hour.
I think so.
Dean, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for all the hard work you do in the community. Congrats once again on your new YouTube channel, and I'm hoping that subscribers will go up.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Of course. Exciting stuff. We'll be looking forward to some new content from you, Dean. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
thank you.
And thank you, Andrew, as well, for hanging in there.
As always.
Yeah. All right. We are out for today. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.